It's bear mace.
I know.
Fuck! Fuck!
guys.
It burns so fucking bad.
That's there.
Bear mace to the eye. Straight to the eye.
Okay.
Help! It got me right in the eye with bear mace. Keep streaming.
I got it.
Keep streaming.
I am. I got it, baby.
My face is burned too.
You gotta get him out of here.
No, I can't even look. I can't even. Keep streaming me. Someone.
I'm streaming.
So get someone to stream me.
I got it. I got it, Banks.
Okay.
It's Rick right here. I got it. Okay.
What is my people saying?
All right. Damn, that sucks.
I need more milk.
Banks, it's gonna hurt for a second. Right, man?
TC and Jake.
Well, folks, I feel like I'm having a normal one. How about you, Jake? Normal one so far?
It's a bit outside of the norm because we have some breaking news. I've told you about this a couple times in the past few weeks, and I finally took the plunge. Check me out.
The nation is falling to tatters, and you're saying prescription deodorant is the focus?
Dude, look at it. I change shirts before we do the show every time now.
But this time, did you?
I didn't. But I will tell you this too. The last 2 nights, I was in excruciating pain for at least 1 hour and probably into the night. Like I was tossing and turning.
An hour.
And at one point was like, I just can't do this. And instead of like wiping it all off, I kind of did the like outside of the ice cream cone type deal where I was just like, all right, at least on the edges where it feels like it's hurting the worst. But after 2 nights of having kerosene splashed down my underarms, like it kind of worked.
Like permanently?
No, I think like based on the guidelines of the prescription, I have to, I guess like maybe go once a week now. And I only found out about this from like a number of IJB listeners, and they told me what was up. They were like, look, it's gonna hurt, dude.
Once a week searing pain sounds like have you considered just sweating?
So that's the other thing, is that people were like, you know, it progressively gets less painful. And it was less painful last night than the first night. But that's like
once you kill all of the cells in there,
exactly.
you're going to be great. It's going to be awesome then.
Yeah.
I heard the segment on it where you seem to lightly imply that, fat people have this coming, of course. We all agree on that. Well, but me, to be having sweat.
It's not so much have it coming, it's more just like it physically makes sense. And I know that...
Go on, Dr. Kemp.
Well, I think if there's like parts of your body that are more... or I suppose less aerated.
Aerated?
Yeah. Like if your arm if skin is touching skin more and it's getting hot and like your skin gets hot, it would make sense that it would be more.
I think your experience is kind of indicating that it's not the controlling factor.
I may be wrong, but doesn't that sort of make sense?
Yeah. No,
like the idea that if you don't have air, if you don't have air to breathe, like through your, you know, and I don't know how this would apply to your feet at all. It doesn't, right? Like your skinny person and heavy person's feet are exactly the same.
I would say that I'm granting that your claim has logical merit, but I would think that based on the evidence, we could agree that it's not actually the main thing that's going on here, right?
I don't know. I think there's a better chance that I'm just an outlier. But I also know this because I
told you about the kid I went to school with that did the sweating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he was a skinny guy.
Another outlier.
I've got a sample size of 2, actually 3, because we were telling this story and one of my friend's wives chimed in that she had the same thing and also
gross,
also skinny, and we'll just like lightly, not the appropriate response, dude. Yeah. Now, why are we talking about fucking sweating? The nation is burning, Jake.
You know, I want to couch this in a way that you don't get mad at me.
Thank you. Okay.
Because I don't care.
How often does that go?
I don't care. Dude, every single year, check the tape. I'm either 9-7, 10-6 division champs. Every year. And the 1 out of 4 years that hits, I'm like, told you. I mean, I said it would happen. And I tout that as like way more of a pronounced statement than the other. We all do this. It's human nature.
Yeah, you said they're going to make the playoffs this year, the Cowboys.
I did, and they should have.
They should have. Okay.
If Doug Peterson had a dick, and Mike McCarthy knew what he was doing, the Cowboys would be in the playoffs right now.
You know, if they had a good team, they'd be in the playoffs too.
Also true. More than one thing can be possible at the same time, but. To me, this looks exactly like what I thought it would look like. I just thought they would be a lot more expedient about it. I hope that we hop into lots of other things of more substance. I don't want to spend the time on this, but if your question is, will we give this one to you? The answer is no. No, that's fine.
I was told election day violence, that doesn't turn into a rolling claim of violence at some point if it doesn't turn out.
And that's totally fine. But what I think it illustrates is that the people who support this person, I wouldn't say this party because I don't think it really has as much to do with like party identification.
Even persons kind of like the idea of a person is more what they're supporting.
Right.
But that's how it goes in
Cult
politics.
of personality.
That's how everyone is, yeah.
That's one of my favorite Mike Reiner crutch phrases ever.
Sure.
And it always made sense. I think it's like possible to surmise that the reason that it didn't happen in November, and even like late November into December, was because they truly believed at that time that it was not even anywhere close to being over.
And just so needed some time to plan out. Because that's, I've seen some, and it's good that there's normal people out there who don't tap into this stuff. Like they're probably leading happier, better lives. But I just, in following Ben Garrison, like he released a cartoon a week ago that was an eagle circling January 6th on the calendar in flames. So I have been kind of being like, man, wonder what's going to happen on the flame date. And so, I think that kind of like, if you said like, well, if we lose, we're going to go crazy. Like that's kind of harder to plan. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This was like people taking time and like getting in place, like the Proud Boys dude was arrested yesterday, right? Or a couple days ago.
I missed that.
Like he was some person. I mean, I thought like the leader of the Proud Boys was Gavin McInnes, right? But I don't think it was Gavin McInnes. It was someone else that got arrested in D.C., indicating just like that the group is there, like they have mobilized to D.C.
I just can't get over how much money I've given Gavin McInnes in my life.
Just through various Vice subscriptions or your Proud Boys membership.
The former, but still. It's money. And as a proportional amount of the money that I had at the time that I gave it to him,
it's quite a bit.
It's $50,000 in today money. No. Yeah. But for real though, like I think it somewhat equates to doing your homework the night before it's due, but it also is they're doing it when it counts, right? Like this is the most spectacular version of doing this. And I guess in my mind, the most spectacular version of doing it would have been the night of or the day after. But this is the second most out of all of the days in between today and the 4th and 5th.
You say that.
I genuinely think all these people thought on the day after the election, nothing has happened.
Yeah.
So that's a miscalculation on my part, but that's why I thought like, oh, it's going to go down that night the next day, because I was using the rational actor model of.
Was hoping that we could all, just level with each other, not play any gotcha games, and just approach the audience seriously and say, did you know that this happens and exists?
What?
Like, I know the Electoral College vote.
Oh.
That's why whenever we would talk about this, I would always refer to the Electoral College vote on I think December 20th is whenever it is.
Dude, you know what this is? This is like today. I
had no idea that Congress gives like a thumbs up, thumbs down to the Electoral College vote.
We had David Moore on today, which I know you're riveted to hear about. I actually do love David Moore. But he brought up exit interviews. And I feel like you hear that term thrown around a lot, and it's like, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
Right? Like you meet with your position group, your coaches, your trainer, like all throughout. Like, what does that mean? And he basically said what I thought, which was what I was angling for with the question, which was, yeah, it's a 10-minute thank you for being here. It's completely procedural. A lot is made of it, but nothing happens. That's what this normally is.
Yeah.
And that's something that's not really reported on because it doesn't matter because nothing ever happens there. It's just, it is happening. And so, yeah, no, you're right. Like, I don't want to sit here and claim to be procedural big brain and be like, but actually this happens on the same day every year. I had no idea.
I mean,
why would you ever hear about
it?
I
found out before today, like when the Howley and Cruz voting against it and, the Flame Circle.
Dude, I can't hear Howley's name without thinking of the brain Woj anymore.
What do you mean?
He's the guy, right? The guy who sent he got Woj suspended from the first 2.5 months of the bubble.
Yeah, he did.
When Woj emailed back, "Fuck you," to a reply all email that a junior congressman
Pretty
sent.
innocuous one, I think.
Like
of the things that Josh Howley is for, I was surprised at that one. But, it's usually not about the content. It's about what's going on in your life,
Dude, Woj might be like a dude.
Through. What do you mean?
Like, he might be like, behind just trying to get the trades and the MLE news out. Like, he might, who does that?
Say, just reply back with fuck you?
Reply all fuck you? I mean, maybe he didn't mean to reply all fuck you, but even, where I am now, I very rarely reply to an email, fuck you, even whenever I get something really scathing. I definitely did 7 to 10 years ago, but Woj is worth a lot of media currency. He's probably 50 plus. I mean, and he gets an email he doesn't like and he's like, fuck you.
It's a horseshoe,
yeah, come back around.
Yeah.
I got you.
Once you built up enough. But, he misjudged.
So to get back to the original point, I always thought that the biggest hedge that I was making was that if you behave like a third world despotic country, then you're going to have third world despotic country results. The one thing that I was unsure of was whether or not it would take longer to take root. Because as you just said, it's taken 3.5, 4 years before you even knew this even happened. This process, this just complete formatic even happened. And I kept thinking this is going to happen eventually. But it might happen to whatever the next version of the man behind is. And I felt I don't know, 60-40 on, actually it's probably going to happen now because the demigod is the demigod. And it's probably pretty unlikely that there's anybody else that ever fires them up like this again. So to me, I always thought there was a chance, pretty good chance. These people are not going to take this well.
Yeah, no, this, I did not, I mean, I was skeptical of the violence claim, but not skeptical of the idea that something different has been going on, that this is that I think that a lot of the attempts to draw a big line between him and, for example, George W. Bush, to me, is just erasing a ton of things that were very true about George W. Bush. But what
do you mean by that?
In his policy decisions and the effects that they've had on people, you didn't have Trump fucking torturing people and saying, actually, this is great and it's fine. He didn't start any wars that left, thousands and thousands of people dead and thousands more homeless and without parents and shit like that. As far as the impact on how do your decisions affect people? I think that for the most part, he just kind of sat there for 4 years doing nothing.
Okay, I don't want to derail you. So remember where you were whenever I jumped in, but I think you could flip that and say it's a matter of whether or not you're talking about people here or people anywhere.
I mean, take it all in some.
Well, I think that, and maybe it's tough to adjust for era, right? Like Dan Marino v. Justin Herbert rookie season, 888. But I think the actions of Trump have been way worse for America than anything that George W. Bush did. But I could also easily make the case.
And I would value Iraqi lives on the level of American lives because they're all lives.
And I'm not saying.
And I'm count up both and feel like there's not a big difference.
And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. Well, obviously you should, count them the same. But as the way that it's typically processed, you think of a leader of a country as primarily being judged by how do they affect the people in their country. Now, if you're America, you are also judged on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right? Very few other world leaders are judged that way. So I'm just saying, I do think that President Trump has had a much larger negative impact on the day-to-day American life.
We're down like a side point of a side point. My point is that I resist urges to view him as singularly bad in terms of his effect. But as far as the phenomenon, Bush supporters were nuts, but they didn't act like this. They never felt like he personally was there for them. They treat Trump like Jesus. The people who love Trump love him.
He's a Christ.
In a way that
or a Messiah.
At no point was George Bush doing that for anyone or any other politician. I don't even know. I don't know. I wasn't alive during Reagan, really. I was for 2 years, and I don't have a lot of clear memories. But I would bet that this is different than that. And so once you have that kind of personal stake, it does seem like the reactions are going to be different. And I don't know. Just another thing is that whenever you listen to the coverage of this, there's a lot of moves to compare it to other countries that countries that by default were saying all those people we look down on. Now we're acting like them. What the fuck? And I don't know.
By the way, one of those moves was done by Trump whenever he tweeted, and I thought this was low-key the most racist thing that he's done in 5 days. Mm-hmm. When he tweeted, even Mexico has voter ID.
Yeah.
If you put even in front of it.
You've given it up a little bit there. But that, so to look at this and be I can't believe I'm seeing this. This is what happens elsewhere, not here. I don't know. I look at this and this is here, dude. I recognize all of those people doing those things.
Sure. They're your neighbor. They're your family member. They're your
absolutely. Whatever.
You're banned from Twitter family members.
It's just it's a constant conversation about what is America, what is the real America, who are the real Americans, and the answer is it's all of us, in some proportion. It's a big question. It's got a complex answer, but during this entire time, the 4 years of Trump, I have just always had the thought reverberating in my head whenever people are like, this is not us. I'm like,
oh,
yes, this is exactly us. The people, the fucking wolves that I was raised by, this is what they look like. The fucking people running the rehab I was in, they would do that. You talk often about your family members that vote for these kinds of things,
or whatever it might be. Yeah,
millions of people you've encountered in your life. That's exactly them.
Yeah, so that's why I think a lot of times during pandemic times, you'll hear people say "Oh, this actually it's not creating problems; it's exposing problems." Mm-hmm. And typically, they're referring to things like healthcare and childcare. I would say are the main two. Of this has been a problem before, that people can't get competent medical care, and in the event that they need childcare, they don't have anyone to do it. And I'm not saying that if we had competent of both those beforehand, that we could have handled this 100% better, but maybe 20% better.
Yeah.
So I think
save some lives.
Anybody who's listened to us for a long enough time knows that I think our position has generally been that he's not a new problem. He didn't come in and bash through the wall. He just had a hammer where there were already enough cracks and is this looks like I could break it. I hope that makes sense. It's not, there's nothing about him that is all that novel other than he's hilarious. Which
Yeah, I mean, I think the Messiah thing is novel in our experience.
it's novel, but I also think it somewhat was building in that direction. And I don't even know that like it's exclusively Republican, right? Because I'm a huge fan of Barack Obama, the man. And the further I get away from his presidency and look at the legacy of it, I'm not that big a fan of Barack Obama, the politician. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that had to do with, just the dynamic that he went into and the way that he approached that dynamic. But there was absolutely a borderline God complex around Barack Obama. And so I'm not saying that I'm not putting him on the level with Trump at all, because obviously, operatively, Trump decided to play that in a way different way than Obama did. But I do think it's like heading sort of.
But like
in
the
that,
enthusiasm people had for Obama, I thought was like maybe possibly less than the enthusiasm people had for JFK. And similar, I don't think you're going to accept this point. That's okay. Like whenever Jimmy Carter like started out, there were a lot of people really fired up about Jimmy.
I don't
Carter.
really know. I honestly don't. I just know that I went to vote for John Kerry and felt like I got a C- and was like, I guess I passed.
Yeah.
The first time I ever voted.
But I think there's a history of Democratic politicians running on a change message and having some effectiveness at like, firing up people's imaginations. This feels like a bit of a new thing. And I don't know, as far as like the events of today, podcasts kind of suck for this sort of thing. Like that it's the least immediate medium. And, so like we're trying to like capture the feelings whenever they're changing so quickly. But yeah, I guess to just kind of like go back through, trace those feelings of what they have been so far today. I think that events like this, like whenever you try and like explain to someone in the future what today felt like, it's going to be hard to convey, because the primary thing for me at least was just like wondering what else is going to happen.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting at a point where it seems like the answer is probably nothing crazy from here. Boy,
I would not agree with that.
Yeah, I think that they're like clearing them out now. I don't know. We can
Bro,
see.
but where are these people going to go whenever they go home? Home?
Here's
and what's going to happen when they get home?
Yeah, what do you mean?
I mean, the same thing that I thought the night
They're
that
march on the Grapevine 9/11 Memorial?
No, but dude, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to stop at like Grapevine, like, Christmas something or whatever, and that would have been funny. But then 9/11 Memorial is funnier. My point is, I thought this the first night of Minneapolis. Like people are like, whoa, geez, that was a lot. At least now we're done. I'm like, dude, this sort of thing does not dissipate overnight.
But what I'm talking about is that whenever we like first see a Twitter video of someone breaking the window of the Capitol, like I'm wondering if like they're fucking tearing Pelosi limb from limb on the floor of the House chamber
right
5 minutes from now, Like
but instead, it was just like the most
like,
memeable content ever.
Yeah. It's just the dude in the hat.
A Viking helmet.
Like, look, I'm in the chair now. But I just like
shout out
at the very beginning of that, like it just there's a feeling of like what the fuck's gonna happen from here, and like now sitting here, like they're going to continue to protest. Maybe they'll engage with the National Guard or whoever tries to clear them out. Maybe shots will be fired. I certainly hope not. And I'm not saying that wouldn't be consequential. But like this morning, it felt like literally anything could happen. Now the universe of things that could happen feels considerably narrower. And it's that feeling that anything could happen. Like that's kind of the thing you take away emotionally from the day.
Sure.
So whenever you're like the craziest day of my life, and I don't know, I would say this is the craziest day of my life. Probably not. But just say, like craziest day of my life, it's a time that a guy went and sat in Nancy Pelosi's chair. Like that's not going to scan to future generations the emotions that we had. And it's because the main thing that's like, fucking with you is freaking you out. It's like, the craziest thing I can imagine just happened. What's going to happen next?
Yeah. So
once you have the answer of what happens next, then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well,
it sort of invalidates everything beforehand.
Yeah.
So I think a big question to ask is, and I think I agree with the more tame take, is this a simple linear increase and a linear increase in aggression and in agitation, or does it more mirror what we've talked about with like technology, where like this looks like weird now and you're like, oh, that's kind of strange, but then like 2 years from now you live in a treehouse like John Titor said, and you're like, boy, I mean that you know what I mean? Like, if everything just keeps slowly building and building and building, then nothing in the past seems that weird, because you have way more time to process it and look back on it and normalize it, and you know, at a very slow drip, be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of weird, but it's only incrementally stranger than whatever I saw before this. If something at some point there's a switch that flips, then you're like, well, yeah, that was a bit of a talisman that was like, oh, God damn, looking back, I should have known that was the moment. But I mean, I think the thing that's like, it jumps out at me too is I don't want to give credit to people that broke into the Capitol today.
It's good.
I want to be very clear about that. But it is kind of interesting that
you did shout out one of them 5 minutes ago.
This has all of the trimmings and the makings of stuff you see in other countries. You know, and we have a leader that has all of the attendant properties of what you see in other countries. But typically, whenever people do this in other countries, they walk into a place with a bomb strapped to them and they kill hundreds, if not thousands of people. So I'm curious, like, what it is that makes us do all the other parts, and then instead of do something, I mean, this is very wild, very crazy, and all these people should go to jail. And honestly, they were risking their lives today, and had they been killed by law enforcement, the law would have permitted that. At least on a lot of fronts. If you were inside a federal building, like we've seen that, right? The guy in Dallas was like breaking into a federal building and I believe got gunned down, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
So
no,
my point is just like, there's almost something strangely internet 2020 like drill tweet about, hey, I'm going to break in and then I'm going to pose for the funniest selfie possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Rather than like blow everybody up.
Well, what is the history? Like, yeah, there's certainly times that Capitol buildings get stormed. I don't know that there's been like a whole bunch of times that those were accompanied by bombs. So
in the world?
Yeah.
Dude, I think that's like I mean, whether it's a provincial capital, a state capital, but people going to government buildings with the sole intent of violence against their leadership has, I believe, a history as old as time. Whereas we had one where it's like, yeah, I want to kind of go in and take a funny picture with a weird helmet on and see if I can maybe have a TikTok account by tomorrow.
All of the
history
footage of them
violence,
definitely
right?
had like a feeling of, you know, the Dan stuff about the once the cat gets out of the house, like, you know, that they're just kind of like marching through. And there was one where they were marching through like the hall where they keep all the statues. And there was like ropes up on either side to like keep the tourists on the line where they're supposed to be. And they were like following them, you know, like they're just like, it's a free tour.
That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
And so let's expand it beyond just like, oh, it's a bombing of a capital. I just mean the general history of political violence is I'm going to do something crazy. And when I get there, my end game is death to the state. Well, this is the closest thing that we've had outside of solo acts of presidential or political assassinations, certainly in my life.
Yeah, I just...
And the end result was a
that
guy with a funny picture.
But I mean, like, that's...
For
like,
now.
It's not a surprising outcome for this because, like, you know, as we were watching the Fox News coverage and one of the reporters was, you know, that was out talking to the protesters, wanted to know, you know, like, it just been going around, like, what do you want? You know, like, what are you agitating for? And he said the most concrete answer he'd received is someone said they were hoping to have a third party. And like what they want is like for the beautiful promised land that Trump said that he was going to give them to arrive, but like they don't even really know what that is. There's not a lot of specific policy grievances here. And
you're saying
it's a general feeling that like I have an idea that I used to be part of the people who are on top of this society, and I don't feel that way anymore, and I want that feeling back. The one that I never actually had, like not me, but like I have a sense that my grandfather got to boss people around and like got just the respect of the society in a way that I don't, and I would like that. Like it's not like they want changes to the tax code. Like they don't have Medicare for all is not what they're marching for, or an excitement about employer-based healthcare.
Right.
Like
excitement
they don't give a shit about all of it. Like they just they figure if I want the world to be one way. It doesn't feel like it's that way yet. That guy told me he was going to help, and now they're taking him out. Well, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to tell him you shouldn't take him out. Like it's not like every instance of political violence is like part of a really careful and here's the important part, effective calculus about how to get change done. The IRA used lots of political violence. Ireland is still separated. So,
so you're saying
these guys are just a different deal.
The lack of specific aims and goals leads to the lack of more dire results.
Like they're walking into there because they have no plan, and like what possibly could they have a plan about?
That's true, but you have to recognize the dissonance between what could they possibly have a plan about? Nothing at this point anyways, and I'm very uncertain that this is going to end up with absolutely no casualties over the next few days.
I mean, the number one thing they want is for Trump to remain president and for Pence to step in and say, so like, yeah, we could have had this go in a way that like, 10 people there had a very like careful, calculated thing of like, we're going to get Pence, we're going to hold him hostage until he does that sort of thing. You're right. And yeah, I guess I'm surprised that there's not someone that's taking this, like, given how much they all fucking cosplay as like military people, like,
dude, they got inside.
Yeah, but
like, I mean, that's
but even getting inside just seemed kind of like, well, I guess there's enough of us, so we'll keep on trying.
You're probably right, but I think there's probably been a lot of violence that started that way and ended another way.
Yeah,
where like people didn't really have like much of they had a clear goal. They might not have necessarily had a clear operational or tactical plan, and then they got to the end and they were like, well, we're here, we have to do something. And what these guys did was made memes.
Yeah.
And got the lulls. So yeah, I don't know. It's super weird too because dude, we came in today like all fired up to talk about this is the most cliche thing ever, like the perfect microcosm of the last several years, because that hour-long phone call is amazing. And it's illegal on several different fronts.
Yeah, but who cares if it's illegal? I'm more focused on the amazing thing.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then, hell, in the last week, we were like, the Nashville bomber's a lizard guy. The Nashville bomber is so pumped right now. Nobody's thinking about the Nashville bomber.
No.
He committed a terrorist attack in a major American city that definitely, fortunately, didn't kill a bunch of people. Now,
but
whether or not that was his aim or not.
Telecommunications across the region.
And talk about things that might seem like a harbinger of things to come in future time. Who knows? Because that one was pretty shocking from this is what you can accomplish with very little sophistication from a domestic terrorism standpoint. That guy barely seemed to know what he was doing on a number of fronts, but knew where to park that van and knocked out 911 and internet in 4 states for 3 days or whatever it was.
Do you think he was intending to do that?
I don't know.
I don't think there's any way.
It doesn't seem like it. Hey, that's your one per. No more pillow humping. But he did, and that provides like at least enough of a copycat thing of like, So we don't have to like be inside the building or get to the
it had
tower.
a very
We could
Ocean's
just-
11 feel whenever I just learned that.
Yeah.
Like, it affected thousands of people. What if one of them was the Bellagio Hotel?
Exactly. And then we watched last night, and it's like, you should have just run Attila the Hun. If she was, if she was more conservative than Attila the Hun,
Yeah, what's Attila doing?
right? Is he free? That's all huge news, and none of it matters now.
Yeah,
Ow.
no, I had forgotten until you mentioned it that we had 2 Senate races last night. I guess I would like to comment on those a little bit, but I don't know. Yeah, see, now we're watching the Fox News coverage. They were just showing the
It's the only channel I have. So.
the people walking through like they're on a field trip. But I don't. One other thing that I saw going around that's a common enough reaction that like certainly I feel, but like to make sure that we all have correct considered feelings on is just there's plenty of people that were like compare the treatment of these protesters to any other protesters ever, right?
Of course.
I mean you would have to think that if a Black Lives Matter protest had attempted to enter the Capitol, that it would have been fucking, very bad for them in terms of the response.
Well, that's why it would have never got to that point.
Yeah.
It would have been.
But like, I've seen some people react to that by being like, why isn't the state being more violent to these people? And I just want to circle the wagons back for everyone and remind us all that we're against state violence. State violence is bad in any circumstance. Like, I don't want the fucking cops shooting their guns now. I don't want cops shooting guns. Like, we've seen like how this is going as a result of this. And like, no one's dead. Like they let them like. I think this is, I don't know, I might have some differences, but like, given the way things have played out where no, Congress people were hurt, we had the reports of one woman being shot by the law enforcement, but other than that, like not a lot of, injuries or loss of life. That's fucking great. Like, this is how you should handle all of it.
Yeah, I think I still just have, for whatever reason, and I'm not like, buddy.
I mean, I just would have put a lot more police there.
Yeah,
Like the
that
basic
seemingly
problem,
would have
the
helped a
basic
lot.
thing that would have that seemed to allow them in was just that they had such greater numbers
Right.
than the number of police on hand. And so the
this was,
easy
like,
solution to
planned
that
by-
is just more police.
On the internet for days. But I'm not a buddy. They won't even let me F it when it comes to the Capitol at all. But I still think there is something to, you do have to, I don't know. It's not like I'm, again, just going out of my way to say like we must protect the sanctity of these few hundred people, but you can't just let people walk into a federal legislative building.
Yeah, but I wouldn't fucking shoot them.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know what my personal line is, and it's that I wouldn't fucking shoot them.
Well, I mean, I think the craziest
How
part
do you think
about
that
it
goes,
is,
dude?
Yeah, you're
you
probably
sure that
right.
every single one of those people, none of them snuck a weapon in, and that
Yeah.
they're not going to, that it's not going to turn into a gunfight on the fucking steps of the Capitol, which
And if
would be
nothing else-
a million times worse than what we're facing right now.
You're right. You're logical, and I'm emotional over something that I don't really have that much of an emotional response to. But I do think it worries me from the standpoint of, God willing, this is done tonight. I don't think that's the case. I think this is much more of a beginning than an end. But there are a lot of places where it's way easier. Hell, Michigan, they were actually inside with weapons. I think there are a lot of places where this ends differently. And I guess we should just be, grateful and fortunate that it hasn't at any point of the last, month, 2 months, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. But somehow no one in there had anything on them. And I feel like Capitol Police is so confident in that they're like, all right, like we'll do the rubber bullets when we can. But other than that, we're not going to Dude, but it's so funny now, like just watching this. Like this, they're just people just dancing.
Yeah, no, one guy kind of thought that was his live shot.
Right.
No, I've been doing research for a future episode I would like to do on the Ruby Ridge incident, and just reading about the needless and tragic way that the state applied force in that incident, which just fucking blows my mind.
I mean, it's very Waco, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's same thing. Like that's an example of like, the state applying force in a way that is reckless and leads to the loss of human life. And the fact that they did not do that, I think, is fucking great and an achievement that should be applauded, not criticized as like, it's not how you did it to people in Standing Rock. The problem was how they treated the people in Standing Rock, not that they're treating these protesters differently now. Like, I think that everyone should have the way that these protesters are being treated. That should apply to all protesters everywhere. Like,
but the real question would be,
you don't like, like, the solution is not that everyone gets, nightstick over the head. I would hope for no one to get a nightstick over the head.
So the question would be, is it possible to have one without the other? Meaning, let's say, because you're looking at it saying, well, this is a situation where there were not enough police there. Those police that were there did not react in a violent manner, but
like
people
if there
did
had been more police, I mean,
would it have escalated to a
I'm
point
not willing
where,
to accept, like, just like, if the police commissioner is sitting there after their officers opened fire on people like this and just been like, well, the police just felt too confident, so they felt like they could, like that's not acceptable as a response.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think that if you feel somewhat outnumbered and possibly overwhelmed, you feel less confident in engaging in aggressive.
That's what I'm saying. So if you have more numbers and then you feel
but
like...
you just said that they should have had more police there today, though, is what I'm saying. So if they did, we don't know exactly.
And you're saying that if they have more police, then they're going to be more likely to fire because they feel like they're in a more confident position. And I'm saying that if that were a string of logic that were trotted out to me by the police commissioner to explain why his officers opened fire, then he's fucking certainly fired, and I'm going to see what kind of jail we can put him in. That's not an acceptable answer to just be like...
No, I understand.
Well, I know we did all that training stuff, but they really felt like they could probably take him, so they did. That's not okay.
No, I agree. We don't have a case where we had like a massive amount of, paramilitary police presence where there was not violence and also not an advance.
It is
like
wild
we have a number of different
so
tiny parts of it. Yeah,
like just whenever you're looking at the videos, as
some of the videos are very damning too.
Yeah, whenever this was starting to go off, and it's just like, you got one guy for every 50 or something, and he just doesn't look ready. One of the craziest ones that I saw was once they were in, there's a situation where they were attempting to the spill of the crowd was coming to a staircase, and there was one officer who there was a nightstick behind him, so he's kind of scrambling backwards and then kind of picks it up and holds it at the crowd, and it seems, and so he he picks it up and then climbs 3 steps and is holding it at them, and they're not really stopping, they're kind of sizing him up as he's sizing them up, and he thinks about it for a second, is goes up 3 more steps and does it again, and just continues this retreat all the way up of don't you go any farther, and they were no, we're gonna go farther, and he was okay this time, but I don't know, man, I've just never seen such fucking I don't know the word for it. He had no control over the situation.
Well, I mean,
and I'm really glad that he didn't start firing into the crowd. That would have been one way to get control of the situation, but Jesus, man.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, that is possibly cynical is that the reason... I don't know why their planning was what it was. Is that needed? We need that? That better be the Golden State murderer.
Could be Antifa on your door. She's just trying to do her best to protect.
And I appreciate that. The timing is just... I don't know why they were so undermanned, but it's
because they don't follow Ben Garrison.
well, it's obvious to me that you could make the connection that they're undermanned because of the composition of the protest.
Yeah, too many days off requested.
No. That no. That,
Well, if you're not willing to go there, I am.
That like in the event that you had a whether it was Black Lives Matter or something that was
I got
racially
something big on
charged,
that day. I'm not gonna be able to go into work.
that like it would have been more heavy-handed, and that it's impossible for there to be a racially charged protest that is undermanned. Because it's not just a matter of, boy, we wish that you would treat them the same as you treat them. It's a matter of, no, this was undermanned because of possible sympathy to your claims and your positions, and then even to go a step further to say, and even the composition of the police response to the quote protest, which is hilarious. Even that is probably going to contain a number of sympathetic figures to your cause.
Yeah, no,
Like
I saw a tweet that was like, hold a good thought for cops today. They're having to gas some of their best friends.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
That
like,
reflects my feelings. And there was another one where a reporter on the scene recorded an officer walking away being like, bet you're happy you have us now. And it's like, to do what? To fail at your basic job of preventing people from going into like the most protected building in the country?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, no, where would we be without you? They would just be able to walk in then.
Yeah. And then we haven't even talked about the Trump video, which
I would like to.
I'm so dumb that I continue, even at this point, like to be the absolute chroniclerologist of all the hilarious things that he said and all the horrible things that he said. I thought when I saw that he posted a video and he had a very regal look about him and he's out in the Rose Garden, I thought, here's the day he becomes president.
Yeah. It's not too late.
And I thought, well, I'll tell you what I thought. What I thought was not what ended up occurring. Mm-hmm. I thought he's going to go out of his way to tamp this down. And it doesn't mean that he's going to full on just completely change his identity, but he's going to say, look, this cannot happen. You got to go home. You're putting yourselves and other people. You might even appeal to the law enforcement and say, this is dangerous for our law enforcement. People you love, I love, so go home. Maybe even I'll call you tomorrow. But the first thing he said in that video was, the election was rigged and the election was stolen.
We all agree on that.
And you know that, and nobody knows it more than, quote, the other side.
Yeah.
Now, if your tamp down an attempt at a revolution includes, quote, the other side,
yeah,
I feel like it might fall on deaf ears. Just spitballing here.
No, I thought it had everything.
I mean, he looked so good.
I think it's one of the most represented. Like, I think it might be like if you're asking me, like, you know, try to encapsulate the whole thing in just one little bit. I think it might be that because, yeah, you know, just let me open by saying that your reasons for attacking the Capitol were entirely correct.
Sure, valid.
And then, you know, having just the feeblest little, like, just there's a lot of stuff like this, you know, throughout his tenure. Like any time that they're like, he's like, do you embrace white supremacism? He's, you know, it's never a yes or a no, but like the answer is never really unclear. You know, like anyone watching it, like they know what's going on. He, like the part towards the end, I also thought was crucial and like very important to understanding all of this. The thing about like you're special people. Daddy does love you, right? You know, and you know, he was interested in getting that across much more than like please break up and disperse. Yeah, that like, part was please 10% break up and disperse was like a. Well, I know this was the video was supposed to be about, so I'll kind of half say the words. But while I have your ear, I want you to know that I love you,
and
like,
you're all important.
And just as far as like the messianic thing, like he understands that, he loves it. Like that was what he was here to do, to be like the savior for these people. Like not in any kind of way that required work or like, having a functioning brain or anything like that, but like just kind of standing there and being the vessel.
Right.
That's a role I've been proud and happy to serve you in, and will continue to do so by letting you know that you're Daddy's special boy, and you've done a great job today.
The Fox News Chiron right now says, Trump says election stolen, but crowd should go home. And like, I honestly don't necessarily quibble with them putting that up there. Like there's
that's exactly what happened.
I know, but there's also an argument that I saw a lot of people making that were like, don't even amplify his message at all. Like if 90% of it is negative and ramping things up, then don't even talk about it. If we're only doing this for the 10% of part of it that he said, like, but maybe go home and I love you. And even the I love you thing is an obvious appeal to...
I don't know that it's the job of certainly not the primary job of the news to shape the message to the protesters. I think you're attempting to just like say what's happening.
I don't think you're shaping it to the protesters. I think you're shaping it to the country.
I don't know. Just tell them accurately what's going on. And it is telling them accurately
You're
what's
talking
going
about
on.
we report, you decide.
That's right.
I think is the message there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to talk about Georgia. I really wanted to talk about the organizing on the ground there because it got me really fired up. I
there
had
was
very low hopes going into yesterday and was almost mad at myself for listening to so many different accounts of the in the field stuff there because I just felt like, boy, this is not going to work out. And I also am no fan of John Ossoff, as I believe, I don't know if I've ever told you this on the podcast, but
you have, yeah.
I know I've told you in non-recorded settings many times, but it was still a really cool...
Reverend Warnock's a first-round name if I've ever heard one.
Dude.
So
unbelievable.
That's a nice balancing aspect.
And he filmed
I don't know a ton
He filmed
about...
a campaign ad walking his dog, and I believe he picked up some poop and made
nice.
a little like allegory to the poop and his opponent.
Yeah.
Kind of scooped it up.
I don't know about that. That seems kind of lame.
No, I love that.
Funny.
That's perfect.
No, I don't know.
Get this dog to poop on command.
I asked Justin what he thought was going to happen going in, and he said that they're going to lose. And he asked me what I thought, and I said, feels like we're due. Feels like we should get a couple good ones. Like whatever the best good one I've gotten so far is like Joe Biden one, then I feel like I'm owed more. And just the universe.
That's a really shrewd political
universe
analysis.
doesn't hate me that much. I know. Well, who's right. But yeah, I did quickly pivot to and I don't know. I didn't even really watch the results that much. And then once it was clear, my kind of first thought was it was doing the mental calculus with myself of
dude, this guy rules, by the way.
Which guy?
The Pelosi desk feet on her desk guy is going to steal this whole deal, even over the Viking.
I first think through Biden promised $2,000 checks if we get these two seats, then being well, I know that's not going to happen. But what does that get me? And what I settled on was now I will not be scolded that hard on Twitter for being mad that he didn't give the $2,000 checks.
So it's all about
that's the ceiling
if we're taking stock
for how this is going. Now that we've
millions of hungry kids, millions in poverty.
The upside is that now if anyone says this is fucked up, they didn't send out those checks. The normal people who would be the important thing is having a solid coalition here. You need to unite behind our leader.
Yeah.
Those people won't be able to say that as loudly because they'll know that he did promise us those checks.
But presidential elections are boring.
But
they're only interesting when Trump is involved. We've seen this a million times. What happened in Georgia, that's two very interesting, how can this turnout wise relate to the general and what demographics come out
just
more.
It's Georgia.
Yeah, it's obviously.
2 Senate elections in Georgia.
Right.
At what point in your life would you have thought that these would be within the realm of contested? Like, I would have thought, like, in a normal circumstance, like, them coming within 10 points would be like, that's a hell of a try, guys. You should feel good about that.
Well, I think they actually voted Democrat. They definitely had a Democratic governor until, I want to say, the late 90s.
Yeah, but he
But it was a different...
gave the keynote speech for the Republicans.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I thought the whole story there was super interesting, and not to be totally lame about it, but kind of inspiring.
But yeah, after I worked through that, I did then kind of like move to the thing that really was getting me excited and like generating some emotion was just thinking about Loeffler not being involved in government.
Yeah.
And just like that kind of like acute disappointment and loss is just something not experienced by people of her wealth very often.
Right.
We're like, we
got an advance, boys.
That's going to be hard to wash off. Yeah, the Capitol Force, I guess that's probably the National Guard.
It is the National Guard.
Is now attempting to clear the area. But at the point people are listening to this, it's probably been clear for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of cool though, but people could have still like gone and watched that Pimple Pop video like that had been up for 3 years before I made you watch it.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is not... But, I mean, I guess, again,
You want to see the next step of the plan from the people who
I
clearly
guess,
had no plan?
Again, to conclude, and I think this, like, sums up a lot of what I think about our current situation. The images that you saw on your television from Minneapolis...
No foreskin, no peace.
And then all over the country...
What a sign says on Fox News
in the
right
weeks
now.
following... no, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Rewind it, dude. It said no foreskin, no peace.
I didn't see it, so I'm just going to...
We'll wrap this up quick so we can go rewind it. You need to see it.
So I think a big part of the difference between the way that the protests and the civil unrest that went down back in May and June contrasts with this is what you saw back then were decades, if not centuries long simmering of stories that had been passed down from person to person to person, and people that had many instances in their life where they were like, I want to do something about this, and they were unable to. But they were also people who knew very acutely the consequences of doing something, their life. And I think that's why it, one, got as hot as it did, but two, also never got to a point of we're breaking into the Capitol. Whereas I think what you see with a lot of the people that are out there today in D.C., and I've thought this for, again, like I said, the last few years, and I think this is about some people that I know very personally, possible family members, is, and I don't mean to like frame this in the sense of like, I'm not new to this. This is something that my identity is not tied up into being into politics or being into social issues. I think a lot of these people are very new to this. Their grandfather's father did not tell their grandfather about it, and then their grandfather told their mom about it, and then their mom told them about it, and they were like, hey, we want to do this for weeks on end because this is important. It's not funny. It's important. Whereas I think a lot of these people, and I'm not necessarily saying this about people who believe in conservative values in general. Actually, not in general. I'm not saying that at all. But I think a lot of these people, the type, Q people, which I believe that's what this is at this point. Like, he is now fully, the call that we shelved playing audio from. That's a Q call. Like, all that shit is straight from the internet. That is not...
The evidentiary standard is the same.
Right. So I think whenever you're new to it, you, one, don't understand the consequences, and two, don't understand what it takes. And I think what you see with a lot of these people is they're just kind of like day trippers for, boy, we're upset about something we just kind of got into recently because they canceled Roseanne.
Yeah.
And so I'm somewhat speaking out both sides of my mouth because I do think this is going to continue for a few days, but I guess I don't think it's going to turn into a pitch prolonged battle. What I worry about is you only need like one to be wrong, right? You only need like one guy of the group who's like, no,
I actually mean this.
Exactly, exactly. I'm not here for the lulz.
I wasn't joking about killing Nancy Pelosi or
that's
whatever
what worries
it is.
me is that it's a large enough, group of people, but, obviously, hopefully, and probably likely, nothing more than just a ton of, wasted energy from...
like that if you think about, like the experience that we imagine, I don't know, talking totally out our ass because it's not our experience, but the experience of like a civil rights organizer in Georgia, or like, the central project of the family since the time that they were granted freedom, since the time they arrived in the country was like establish, their dignity and, find a place in the society for themselves. Versus someone who's always had a place in society for themselves and is now like, boy, it used to be like a little bit better, and I really like to get back to that.
Right.
Yeah, that's just such drastically different experiences, and I don't know. Really does counterintuitively seem to generate a similar amount of anger.
Yeah.
But it's you got different structures to feed that anger into. One being built up because, this has always been vitally important to the literal survival of our family, versus another being like, well, I'd like for this to happen. So.
And I'd love for this internet thing that I saw to be proven true.
Yeah. All right.
Good times. Well, it's not really good. That was probably...
It's times.
It is certainly times. We'll see you.
That's it for tonight. The high school special is next, so until tomorrow, for everyone who's been a part of this one,
I'm TC and Jake.
We do thank you for watching. Good night.